It was the night before Christmas when all through the house... Oh, sod the poetry bullshit. This is utter punt. What am I working with? Dan, you have to take a finger.
I feel for you all.
You can do that, you'll only lose by 20.
Welcome along, you utter punts. The Bills are back in the Super Bowl race, the Eagles aren't committed enough, and the Vikings have decided their terrible season is all the fault of their artificial pitch. Welcome along.
It's incredibly boring.
How is that boring?
Carry on.
Shut up,
You. If anybody mentions Taylor Swift, it's a straight red card and a 2-pod ban.
We got everything right last week. Yeah, cruised it last week.
Pretty sure I only got one wrong.
Professional, one wrong.
Unbelievable. I tell you what, it's Harry. Press the button. Welcome along to Utter Punts in association with endzonekit.co.uk and Beer Keller. After last week's intro strayed dangerously into the territory of becoming an extension of me, bloated and full of its own self-importance, I've decided to keep it simple this week. I'm Liam Bradford, and with me in Manchester, it's Ravens fan Dan Horn.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much. In Birmingham, it's Vikings fan Dave Keane.
All right, then.
How you doing, mate? You okay? At least I didn't call you a Harry Potter character this week. On the way, a look at the stories that caught our eye in the NFL this week, a full look ahead to the weekend's games, and some fantasy advice for our friends at the Fantasy Game Day app. Plus, who gets the dreaded Utter Punts of the Week nomination? This is Utter Punts. Hello, Yuletide felicitations, Feliz Navidad, Merry Christmas, and all of that jazz. I did not get the Christmas jumper memo, boys. When did this get decided and why wasn't I included?
Natural flair.
Natural flair, my rear end. You two have definitely pre-planned this.
Actually, haven't.
All right, okay, that means we're going to have to have a Christmas jumper off. Dave, you're sporting a very festive, for the people that aren't watching on YouTube, a very festive Vikings purple and Vikings yellow Christmas jumper. It's very lovely, that's what I'll call it. Dan, you are sporting a Baltimore Ravens black, gold and purple Christmas jumper number.
Merry Christmas.
If we were going to have a Christmas jumper off here, who would win said competition? I think it's really touch and go, but I might give it to Dave. I think.
Still Dave?
No, the Pyrotechnics wins it. It is illuminated and flashy. I probably should give a flashing lights warning here, shouldn't I, for anybody that might be suffering from, fits induced by flashing lights. Please be careful. That's pretty impressive, that, Dave, isn't it?
Wow, just goes to show you can polish a turd. Well done, mate.
Love it. Dave, let's do the news of the week, shall we? You've got a very, very interesting news story this week. What have you got for us?
Oh, it's about what we've done.
Yes, it is.
It's about the fact that as a show, we have somehow managed to do what nobody else has been able really to do. And that is, we've killed the Eagles. We called the show Die Eagles Die just because we all hoped that they were going to lose on that particular episode, and they've not won since.
No, they haven't.
I think we can take all credit for it. We don't focus on the fact that they've had to replace their DC as their play caller. We don't have to do any of that. We just know full well that the Eagles are losing because we cursed them. Well done, boys.
During the middle of Dave's speech there, I took a drink of water and poured freezing cold liquid right on my right nip, and it's very, very chilly. Goodness me.
Were you aroused? Let's be honest.
If I wasn't before, like loose rivets now. Right. We've killed the Eagles off.
We'll see. Well done us. They've also played 6 of the best teams in the NFL back to back.
About to be 7.
Well, exactly. Let's see. Let's see how long our curse lasts, shall we? Let's see if it sees next year.
We've killed them, and we are about to bring them back to life.
Yeah.
Well, that was the point, right? It wasn't fair on them. Like we've Mixed v Hex.
Revive, Eagles, revive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll call
yeah.
this episode
Revive,
Revive
Eagles,
Eagles
Revive.
Revive.
And if they win, that's all down to us, right?
It's basically
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, we've decided what happens with Eagles.
It's like a
I
defibrillator.
let them off the hook.
playing the New York Giants is like a defibrillator. It's going to shock them back into some kind of form. I think that's fine. Dan, who are you going with this week for your news story?
I looked at the running backs because in the off-season last year there was a lot of talk about how they're undervalued and they were going to go on strike and they don't get the money they want. And
We did it on this podcast, I think.
yeah, and you know, because they're too old and they only get one contract. And Raheem Mostert is the one that's caught my eye because he's 31, Raheem Mostert, which means he's older than Le'Veon Bell, who's retired. He's older than Ezekiel Elliott, who's past it, and he's scored 20 touchdowns this year, Raheem Mostert, and I think he's the third fastest player recorded this year, ball carrier this year, at 31, which means at 20 touchdowns he's level with Christian McCaffrey, who's the MVP, really, in many cases, and he scored more touchdowns than the entire offense of the Jets, the Giants, the Patriots, the Panthers, and he's 31, which makes me think maybe he's not past it, and maybe there's a career for these running backs if you get them in the right situation. But then I also look at the importance of running back for teams like the Rams. Okay, so the Rams have come back into some sort of form. They're into contention. It's because they've got a really solid running game. They've got a young running back, and he's playing really well. And when he went out of the team, they didn't look so good, and when he's come back, they look really good again. Players like Christian McCaffrey, who's going to lead. I mean, if he carries on, I mean, he'll have a bad game on Monday, obviously. But if he can just about recover from that 3-yard game he'll have on Monday night, then he could go for 2,500 scrimmage yards this year. And these players make such a difference to these teams. And I think if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you need a good defense and you need a really good running back. And I think that the narrative should start changing about that.
Is that hope or expectation?
Fact.
Hope. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a killer. I've gone with Aaron Rodgers this week. So if you haven't seen the story, the big news coming out of the NFL in the last couple of days is that Aaron Rodgers was returned to the Jets' active roster. It meant that he was available for selection, but they have said that he will not take part in any games between now and the end of the season. Now, it got me thinking, and it made me go and do a little bit of digging as to why you would bring back Aaron Rodgers to your 53-man roster if you weren't going to play him. And I went away and I listened to what the Jets head coach had got to say about it. And essentially, the long and the short of it is they're doing it for team morale, if you listen to the head coach. I wonder whether if the Jets had been in a slightly better position and not been so terrible over the last few weeks, bringing him back to the active roster may have meant potential game time for Aaron Rodgers. And I'd love to get your two's take on that. What do you think is the purpose of bringing him back to the active roster?
For me, the purpose of bringing him back, he has to be an active player to be able to participate in practices. So if they want to get an advance on getting him working with the first-team offense and this first-team offensive line and seeing what they've got, because this is a lost season for them now. They may as well use these games and these practice sessions that they've got before the season ends to see what they've got and let him decide on, is this the right offensive line? Where does it need to strengthen? Building some chemistry in the practices with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and these good players they've got. You're absolutely right though. Had the Jets won a couple more games and they've been close in a couple, he would be playing. I think, if not this week, maybe next week, and he would be keeping them in contention. As they're out, they're absolutely doing the right thing. But I think they get 3 weeks here of full practices with Aaron Rodgers, and let's have a look at what they've got.
Robert Saleh, Dave, said that if Aaron Rodgers was 100% fit, he'd be knocking down his door to play, and he's currently not doing that. Is that more deflection tactics from the Jets head coach?
No, I think he's right. I think if Rodgers had been fit 2 weeks ago, Rodgers would have been asking to play. He's clearly not. And I believe when we discussed this earlier this season, we did say that he wasn't going to get back to 100% with his ACL. It was going to be 95% mobility with the surgery that he'd had. So I think that what they will do is, as Dan said, just use this time now to get him integrated with that O-line, learning his cadence. There we go, from last week, right? And then we can talk about the fact that they're going to be tanking from a week before for their remaining games. No, I'm only joking, Dan. But like, but they don't have anything to play for now, so they may as well go down the route of trying to consolidate what they can get in terms of assets and plan for next season in terms of practice time with Rodgers. There's not going to be much help for the quarterbacks, which they do play now, because they will be losing first-team reps to Rodgers in practice as well. So you can potentially expect him, it can go one or two ways. They could get a psychological boost from Rodgers' presence back on the practice field and actually getting people to train and organise in the right way for the offence, and that might help out the other QBs. But they're going to be losing snaps now, and I think it's always important to give people as much reps with that O-line as possible. So this season's a write-off for them. On to the next one. It's what they should be doing.
The point is that they also need to make sure that this coaching staff needs to make sure that that's the coaching staff that takes over next year. Because if the narrative carried on the way it was, so negative, I think Salah would be out of a job. Nathaniel Hackett would certainly be out of a job. And maybe the GM would even be out of a job. What they've got to do now is try and sell next year. And having Aaron Rodgers practicing and in the film and in the study and in those things, and they can publicly say, look, it's all about next year now, they might just be able to save their own jobs as well. So there's a bit of marketing, a bit of politics about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, this show was also about Rodgers, and then it happened, right? Yeah. So I think they probably will get a mulligan on it. I don't think it would be unreasonable, but they need to get something next year.
Yeah, certainly do. Right, look, we are tight for time because Dave's got a Christmas party to go to straight after we've recorded, so we are going to move on, and we'll be back with you after this. Briefly, let's take a little look at our stock market game. I explain it every week. For those that are new to the podcast, I'm going to do exactly the same again. We have all picked 4 teams. 1 to do worse than they did last season, 3 to do better. For every position, worse or better, depending on whether you've picked them to be up or down, you get a point. I am currently exactly the same place that I was last week. That is dead last on 8 points, but I haven't got any worse or any better, and I'm taking that as a win. Dan, you're 4 points down on where you were last week. This mainly down to the Steelers causing you a bit of a problem. It doesn't care. So they've gone backwards, and that's cost you 2 points, but otherwise 20 points. You're in second place. Dave, you're still leading the way. You're a point better off than you were last week. That down to the Browns, I think, more than anything else, up to 7th currently in the standings. So how are you feeling about your positions going into the last couple of weeks of the regular season?
Very happy.
Dave?
Not as happy. Yeah. No, it's got to come down to the playoffs with these things in terms of the final adjustments. I think the Browns have been a solid investment. I'm happy with that. But the Broncos can't stop the run. They're annoyingly bad when it comes to that. It's and then of course, in terms of getting Dan's score down a little bit, I need the Vikings to do well. I'm in so much trouble. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Good. So you can stay abreast of that as we go through the rest of the season. Excuse me, that's one of the fantasy games we play. You guys are in regular fantasy too, but the third one that we would love to tell you about is the Fantasy Game Day app, which you can download now from the Apple or Google app stores. It is essentially a fantasy app where you get to pick a team and there are prizes if you finish in the top 10 of any particular week. Costs £7.50 to enter your team, but if you register using the code PUNTS, PUNTS, then you will get a free entry once you've put your first entry in. Every week we try and pick a player that we might think is a good idea to put into a fantasy team. Again, it's important at this juncture to point out that we're not telling you that you should do that. It's just a little bit of advice and guidance for you. So, Dave went first last week, so Dan's going first this week.
They've got 2 games this week, so they've got a Saturday lineup and then a Monday Stars, which is interesting. So a couple of players I would make sure he's definitely in my team for both. He's James Cook for the Bills. I think his performance against the Cowboys was statistically the best running back performance of the season.
Wow.
For a Bills team that struggles to run the ball, so he's a must. You got to get him in every team you've got. And also a sly one, David Njoku at tight end for the Browns. His rapport with Flacco has always been Flacco's always been a tight end favouring quarterback. He's always done really well with tight ends. Dennis Pitter was his famous friend at the Ravens when we won the Super Bowl. So David Njoku has had 2 monster games back to back for Flacco, and I think he'll carry on again against a Texans team that hasn't really got much of a secondary. So those 2 really for me.
Good stuff. Dave?
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the kind of wide receiver who can get open very quickly against the kind of defence that the Vikings currently play, which is either blitz everybody or blitz nobody. I'm expecting him to get himself open, and I think that Goff will be panicking and trying to hit those targets as soon as they're open as well. So, yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5,800 I think he is, yep. And I'm expecting him to at least accumulate points for receptions against us, and he might even go in for a touchdown or 2.
Good work.
6.
6. Thanks. Thanks, Dan.
6 touchdowns. In which case, it'll be the best tip this week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Take it as it was intended. No, don't take it as it was intended. Take it the way that you want to take it. It's safer. Right. Okay. Last minute Christmas shopping, stroke January sales, stroke you've got yourself some Christmas money and you want to spend it. I tell you what, I've got the perfect place for you. Utter Punts is proudly sponsored by one of the best kit suppliers out there, Endzone Kit. Endzone is a transatlantic company whose mission is to make finding kit a little bit easier and a little bit more affordable so you can represent your favourite American sports teams. Whether you're looking for NFL, college football, baseball, hockey or basketball memorabilia, Endzone's got you covered. With sizes from newborn up to 3XL, anyone can find something at endzonekit.co.uk. And one of the things that we love is that they have a whole range of retro and pre-loved gear so you can rock your vintage style while supporting your team. So why not head to endzonekit.co.uk and find yourself a bargain. And because you listen to Utter Punts, you can have a 15% discount at checkout when you use the code PUNTS. endzonekit.co.uk, the place to go for your American sports kit. We love the guys at endzonekit.co.uk. I forgot to mention, and I absolutely should, if you are getting involved in the Fantasy Game Day app, it's 18 plus, and please be gamble aware. If you think you've got a problem, find somebody to help you out. BeGambleAware.org is the website that you need to go to. I've got a bone to pick with you.
What have I done now?
Cheated on us. Cheated on us, didn't you? When I did a different podcast this week, didn't you?
Well, yeah. They wanted some, guidance.
Some help.
So I gave them 4 terrible tips.
Yeah.
How did they get on, Dan?
Let's mention the podcast first. They are called...
It's Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. So they're 3 lads from Manchester, so from England. They're English fans, the UK fans. And that's why it was interesting to us. And we wanted to sort of help them get on and spread the word, really, because we're trying to grow the community. There's a massive sort of growing of the UK, of the sport in the UK. And... I think the more people we get talking about it, the better. And they're like-minded individuals like us. They want to spread it. They do a good job, and it's a great little podcast they've got.
Good stuff. So they asked you to make 4 picks. How did that go for you?
The advice was really good, but the picks were terrible. I should have just gone with the. Why didn't I just go with the Bills? I was adamant the Bills isn't batter the Cowboys, and should have just gone with everything, but stayed away from that one for some reason.
You said on the podcast last week the Bills are the best team in the NFL at the moment.
There's nothing now, and now everyone's saying it, right?
Look, you were ahead of the curve, and no doubt about it. You know, it was a good shout, nice and early from you.
It was a
Didn't
brave
back
shout,
yourself, but good shout, nice and early.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, just not in the public domain.
Not verbally.
Yeah. Should we get on with the previews?
Yeah.
Now, we've got 6 to do this week because they're spread out all over the festive period. So the big veto button is back in action. So if you hit the veto button, none of us are allowed to talk about a particular fixture. All right?
I know what mine is. Sorry.
Okay. So if you press it, that's it. We've just got to move on. Everybody in agreement?
Yeah. Move on and just pick
No
it.
limit.
Pick.
Yeah, just one. You're only allowed one, Dave. In fact, should we just make it one for the pod? I think that's even safer, all right? Whoever presses it first.
Otherwise we'll be covering one game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first game up, I have a funny feeling I know what's about to happen. Cincinnati Bengals at Pittsburgh Steelers, 23rd of December, 9:30 at Acrisure. Are we talking about it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was the one that you were going to press the button on.
Wait till you'll know what it is when it comes.
Okay, good stuff. So, Bengals at Steelers, 8-6 versus 7-7. It's a nice tight game, this one, in terms of record. Jake Browning, more on him a little bit later. Dave, do you want to go first on this one?
Well, yeah, Jake Browning, what a nice guy. Former Minnesota Viking. We'll get into that later. But yeah, he's been playing well lately. However, his number 1 wide receiver currently has, I believe it's a shoulder injury. So Jamar Chase currently hurt. However, T. Higgins is back. So they do have an offense out there which can be effective, that can move the ball. But it is a big thing that Jamar Chase isn't there, I think. And I think that might handicap them going into this game at the weekend. But probably not enough based on who they're playing and how they're playing currently either. But I'm not going to comment on that because I like hearing Dan talk about him. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Well, listen, these two teams met 4 weeks ago. It's the last game the Steelers won. It was Jake Browning's first game, and it's the last game the Bengals lost. Since then, the Bengals were expected to go on and nosedive and have really turned it around. And the Steelers were expected to go on and rampage and haven't won a game since, and they've lost to the Cardinals, the Patriots, and the Colts. And this week they've got Mason Rudolph starting. Bye Pittsburgh, Merry Christmas.
His time of year, though. It is his time of year.
You're right, and the thing is, you're right about Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins looked outstanding against the Vikings, and his play, I think, was probably the play of the year. And when you watch this Steelers secondary, the front looks really good, but the secondary is about as slow a secondary as I can see in the league. They're awful, and I think Browning will do enough to beat them, even this is in Pittsburgh. And Mason Rudolph isn't going to do anything. I don't think we've seen that before.
Steelers' last win was against the Bengals.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it was the Bengals' last loss.
Yep.
And it looked like it was shaping up for them to go on different and the trajectory has completely changed based on the fact that the quarterback play for both teams has been not what we expected. Browning has been better than we thought, and the Steelers have just car crashed, unfortunately for them.
And that Steelers offense, like, just to back you up, has got fewer than 19 points in 5 straight games now. So just in terms of statistics to back up what you were saying, yeah.
And the defense can't stop anybody. So if they were a really strong defense, 19 points might be okay. Look at the Broncos. But it's not. They're conceding 30 points a game.
If the Steelers are going to win this one, it is going to be through the air, though. Their pass defense really struggling. 27th in the NFL in terms of yards per game. Almost dead last. Second bottom they are for yards per carry given away on their pass defense. And you'd like to think that if the Steelers had any chance at all, it would be through the air. But what you're saying to me is the quarterback's just not good enough.
No, he's terrible.
Okay, Dave, who are you picking?
Yeah, the Bengals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bengals.
all right. Clean sweep for the Bengals. Moving swiftly on to the best team in the NFL.
I will say that the Bengals aren't that short a favourite. They're very much a proposition. I think they're 8 to 11, so stuck in.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Moving on to the best team in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, at the French debt collectors, the Le Chargers.
Worst team.
So, worst team in the NFL, are we going there?
I think worst team in the AFC against the best team in the AFC.
And Staley, gone?
Gone, bye-bye.
So
Tom Telesco, gone.
Yeah, okay.
Bye-bye.
That's does that help them or hinder them?
Normally, and Dave's a big advocate of this, and I would normally back him that you get a new coach bounce, right? But their new coach is called Giff Smith. So unless they're expecting a Giff Smith lift, I'd made that up. A Giff Smith lift, and I just he's called Giff.
I wonder how many memes will start going around the internet that are just gifs. And can you imagine if there was a meme of him on a mobile phone, it would be a gif of a gif gaff, which would be even better.
Just imagine that you've got your coach is gone. You're supposed to be happy, but all your best players are injured and refusing to play. Keenan Allen isn't practicing. Austin Eckler's not practicing. They've got no offensive line. They've got Easton Stick playing at quarterback, and here come the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills.
Are they going to walk through him, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, like, why didn't we veto this one? Like,
That's funny. That's why.
Like,
Well, we don't have to spend long on it.
No, I mean, I almost feel bad for the Chargers. They are going bankrupt. They themselves are a victim of their own high rates of inflation. I don't know, but they everybody's injured. They have nobody left. They don't have any coaches left. They've got rid of Staley. Staley himself said that as soon as his message stopped getting over to the defence, then they concede 50 points. Then he got fired.
60?
63, if we're
He's
being
the team that's scored none the week before.
I mean, if you want to write your own death warrant, it's telling the players how many points they need to concede to get you fired. So, yeah, but we said he should have been gone a while ago. He's wasted an awful lot of talent there, but everybody's injured. So, yeah, I can't see anything happening other than the Bills going into it and hammering them. But the Bills have been playing really difficult teams, constantly getting themselves up for a really tough challenge. Is it a trap game? Is that a question? But I can't see it.
Yeah, me neither. Josh Allen, 37 total touchdowns for the season, more than anybody in the NFL. 26 of those are passing touchdowns, which means that he's also got 11 on his feet, which is, I mean, it's quite incredible. It had passed me by So obviously I noticed the 63 points put on Staley and the Chargers by the Raiders, but I had forgotten that the week before they'd been held to nil in a 3-0 game
It went
against
from 0 to 60 in real fast time.
Wow. Right
The
then.
points line on this, the handicap is 10.5 points. And
Is that it?
It's about a third of what it needs to be, I think.
Wow.
This could be
Are we all
another one.
are we all going Bills? Yeah, we don't need to discuss who's going where, do we? Yeah, right. Okay, so clean sweep again, Bills. Las Vegas Raiders against the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day, 6:00 at Arrowhead. Have I missed one? Are you pointing at Browns Texans?
Yeah.
I haven't got that one on my list. I've only got 6 on my list.
There's that one as well. There's more than 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Are they all on telly?
Yeah.
God. I've only got 6 on my list.
Well, we'll just talk about them 6 then.
All right, works
I'll
for me.
ignore all the work I've done. You've not got. Have you
Get
got
in,
Cowboys,
we
Dolphins
beat
on there?
0-3.
It's the best game of the week.
Which one?
Cowboys and Dolphins.
All right, well, we'll put that one on there, shall we? Look, I'm not saying...
Is this due to the producer, mate?
No, I'm a little bit reticent to say whose fault this is, Ollie.
Is it
but,
Ollie?
Essentially, we've bought
I
on
put it in the group. I
a
put a
punt.
picture of it.
A punt intern is what we've done. We've bought on a punt intern, right? And the punt intern,
Puntern.
yeah, has a job where he writes my notes for me, which helps me out because I'm setting up the studio and editing all the video and various other bits and pieces. So it saves me a little bit of time. He put 6 games on there, and
Has it just done the Saturday, Sunday
yeah.
shit?
No. We've definitely got games into Monday, unless I've misread it, which is a possibility, Ollie. If that's the
We'll just
case,
talk about them, don't worry.
if that's the case, then I apologise. But
Well, we don't need to talk about the Browns and the Texans, do we?
no, we'll just bin them off.
Right.
Right.
Teams, aren't they?
So I'll tell you what. Instead of going off my piece of paper, we'll go off your list. So
Browns.
what's the next game, Dan? You present it, and I'll pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
Of course, the late game is Browns at Texans, Dave. CJ Stroud out. What do we think about this?
Browns at
we'll
Texans.
go-
I thought we were vetoing that
We'll
one.
We'll go with the Browns. Veto,
Yeah,
move
cool.
on.
That works for me.
Oh no.
Yeah. Why?
Because
You wanted
that
to talk
means we
about
have
it.
to talk about the bloody Broncos and the Patriots.
No, we don't. We can veto that one too.
I thought you said it was one a show.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
But that was when we had 6 games.
We've
We've
changed
now-
our mind
we've
now.
now got 8.
The Browns
Yeah.
haven't got. The
We're
Texans
going
haven't got any
crazy with
players left.
vetoes.
Now we've got 9 games. We've got 3 vetoes is what we've got.
go.
Move on. What's next? Cowboys,
Cowboys and
Dolphins.
Dolphins.
Right, let's talk about this one. This looks like a lot of fun, doesn't it?
Veto.
Fraud bowl.
You can't veto this. We're overruled. Overruled. This game feels to me like it could be an absolute corker. Who's going first, Dan or Dave?
Dave,
Dave.
I'll go then. It's a
Okay.
fraud. They're
Yeah.
both frauds.
We nodded at each other. Fraud off.
They're both fraud. It's a fraud
Fraud
bowl.
off.
It's the fraud bowl. These teams have got a record of 1-6 combined against teams with a winning record this season, and they're both going to the playoffs. Good luck. Will the Dolphins beat a good team, and will the Cowboys win a road game? I don't think either are probably true, which means it'll probably be a tie. I think the Dolphins need to show it, don't they, at home? They've got a really tough run. So they started the year, the Dolphins, with the easiest strength of schedule, and they're going to finish with the hardest 3 games. So they're at home to the Cowboys, then they go at Ravens, good luck, and then host the Bills. Good luck. So Cowboys, Ravens, Bills is how they finish. So and they're 2 games ahead of the Bills, but the Bills have their head-to-head, and they play each other the last game of the season. So the Dolphins can probably drop 1 game if the Bills win out. I think the Bills are playing the Cardinals, the Chargers, and the Patriots. So chances are the Bills are going to win their games, and then they'll meet in Week 18. Hopefully it'll be on telly and it'll be a match for the AFC East. But the Dolphins need to win to get there, because if they lose this, which they definitely could, because the Cowboys are a good team, then they go to Baltimore, who probably need to win. And Baltimore at home is a tough ask for the Dolphins, and then they host Buffalo. So, how do the Dolphins beat the Cowboys? They've got to run the ball. They've got to run the ball straight down the throat of Dallas, which is exactly what Buffalo did. It's exactly what San Francisco did, and it's exactly what Philadelphia did the first time they beat them, and it's exactly what Arizona did when they beat them earlier in the year. Run straight up the middle. That's all you got to do, and they are soft. The Cowboys. They are like an orange cream. There you go, festive.
Wow.
They're like an orange cream rose. Look really nice, really bright, flashy. One everyone wants to go for, but actually when it comes down to it, soft. Dolphins.
Okay, Dave.
I agree with Dan. I've got a very different way. I think when you, yeah, I don't think they're particularly. I mean, I don't like calling any NFL team soft, because if the players heard, they'd come and kill us. Yeah.
If I just
but
ran
like,
at them, they'd
at
run
the
away.
same time, only up the middle.
Yeah.
Like if you tried to do a zone run to the outside, mate, they'd kill you. But anyway, the Cowboys haven't beaten. Well, the Cowboys have lost road games and against some really bad teams, and in a way, I think that the Dolphins, who haven't beaten anybody, should really get their big home win against the Cowboys. But is Tyreek Hill going to play?
Yeah, he's practiced today, so he'll. I think he'll be fit. I think he'll play.
So if Hill plays, I think that we can safely say that the Dolphins should be deserving favourites based on the handicaps of both teams. And I do much prefer the way that. I mean, look, I'm almost hurt that you're calling a Mike McDaniel's team like soft and a fraud, but at the same time, I haven't beaten anyone with a winning record. You're quite right. It's just it undermines everything. So, yeah, maybe a tie. Maybe Liam's tie might happen.
Just keep picking it every week.
Yeah, I'm going to pick one every week. Why not? Who are you going with, Dan?
I think the Dolphins' defense has really started coming around. I think at home, I think they need to win, and I think they will. But this, it's a dangerous game for Dallas because it could really, really scupper if they lose 2 on the bounce. I think confidence-wise.
Interesting. Dave, who are you going with?
Well, the Eagles are on the rise again, aren't they? So if things that the Eagles want to happen will happen. The Cowboys will lose. Yeah.
So you're going with Dolphins,
Dolphins
yeah? I'm going to go with a tie. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? I don't know. What's next on your list, Dan?
Next on the list is the veto game. Pats at Broncos. Broncos veto.
Veto. Look, the reason that we're vetoing it is just because we are limited on time. The other reason is it will be shit, so don't bother. Moving on to...
Raiders at Chiefs.
Raiders at Chiefs, Monday 25th of December. Christmas Day at 6 o'clock at Arrowhead. This is a weird concept for people that may only be used to watching sport in the United Kingdom, playing sport on Christmas Day. Yeah. It's certainly... from a modern point of view, a little bit strange. I know historically in the UK we have played games of football, for example, on Christmas Day, but not anymore. Why? Why play on Christmas Day?
It's new for the NFL as well, so it's only come in the last couple of games. There's been one game the last couple of years, but it's always been a basketball. So the NBA make a big thing about playing on Christmas Day. And the NFL are basically just trying to eat into the real estate. They think they're the bigger market, and they are. I mean, and one of the games that's coming up later on is what's the game of the season? Surely, there'll be more people watching the NFL than the
Giants Eagles. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito. So yeah, it's a big market, and this is a good game because I think before the season you say it's an absolute layup for the Chiefs, but they're not playing well, and the Raiders after that win they must be feeling absolutely really really good about themselves.
Invincible.
And the Raiders always seem to give the Chiefs a game. They always seem to lose, but they're always very close. I know Travis Kelce's killed them a few times late on in games, and the Raiders can score points as they showed on against the Chargers. But I think anything you see against the Chargers has to be ruled out as an anomaly. So I just think it's a really nice game for the Chiefs to get back on track. And I think the Chiefs, they've got the smell of a team that's really pissed off.
And more on this later, but you only need to look at the meltdown that Pat Mahomes had after the Kadarius Toney situation again at the weekend to show just how frustrated Pat Mahomes is about the situation at the minute. And if your leader is that frustrated about things that are going on, unfortunately... it does sort of cascade down to the rest of the team. You've only got to rewind 4 weeks, Dave, to the last time these two played each other. It was week 12 when the Chiefs beat the Raiders 31-17. The Chiefs are still box favourites for this, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, but at the same time, I do think I've got a lot more faith in Andy Reid than I do any coaches who are currently at the Raiders. But I would say that Crosby is a massively underrated player. What a player he is. They've got 2 of the best players in the NFL on their roster in Max Crosby and Devontae Adams. So they should have been firing to a much better level than they were under McDaniels. And I'm anticipating it coming across pretty well in this game. I think it will be a closer game. I think that the Chiefs are actually tensing up a little bit, but I still think they're going to come out on top.
Right, okay. We are going to break from the previews there. We'll do the rest of them in just a second. Couple of things that we need to do. The first one is to talk to you about our friends at Beer Keller. Beer Keller in Manchester, one of the best places to watch the NFL. Like-minded people, great TV screens, fantastic wings and beer, and it's just a really lovely place to go and watch the NFL. We did a live show there a couple of weeks back. We've got a couple more live shows in the pipeline from down there, watch parties, including potentially the Super Bowl, cross fingers. And we're really looking forward to going down and sort of spending a bit more time with them. If you're in and about Manchester on a Sunday, you want to go and watch some NFL, there is no better place to do it than at Beer Keller. They are brilliant, they're great people, and we cannot recommend them highly enough. I believe that we are going to have a conversation very shortly about the allegations that I put towards Ollie, and we're going to do that after this. Okay. Hi,
I've
Ollie.
been getting hammered.
It's Will
Group.
Scarlett from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
It is. So, I am just going to repeat the allegations, and then once I've repeated the allegations, we can come back and we can dispute the allegations. The allegations are that the punt intern, Ollie, who is the only paid member of this podcast, let me have you know, the only paid member of this podcast. None of us take any money apart from Ollie. Ollie does my notes for me to try and help me out.
The veto one.
What? Ollie, we're talking. The grown-ups are talking. Be quiet.
I can count 7.
Right,
Excluding
you
the
two,
one everyone vetoed.
You two, everybody can hear you. Wind it in. Let me explain the situation. All right. Ollie sent me my notes. I'm going to show Dan the notes that Ollie sent me. This says
Utter punts week 15. That's
okay.
Wrong because it's week 16.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
He obviously just hasn't updated.
No,
this.
it's week 15. You're right.
So, Bengals Steelers 1.
Yes.
Bills Chargers 2.
Yes.
Scrolling down on these notes again. Vegas against the Chiefs 3.
Well, no, you've missed 3 games.
But you see, they're not in the
No, they're
notes
not.
here, are they?
They're
No.
not.
And then the next one I've got is Giants Eagles.
That's
4.
correct. That's
okay.
correct. Yeah.
The next one I've got is Ravens Niners. That's
Also
5.
correct. Yeah.
And the last one on my list is Jets at Browns. Yeah. And then there's nothing else in here.
Just keep going, just for evidence reasons. Okay, I'm happy. There's nothing.
There's nothing else there. So how many games are there in the notes that were sent across to me?
There are 6 games.
6 games in the notes that were sent across to me.
6.
Ollie, you're going to find this quite difficult to dispute, my friend. Are you still there?
No, mate, he's left ages ago.
Okay.
It showed me a picture of Sky showing the games that they had up for TV, and it only showed 7, including the one which Dan previously vetoed in the group chat and then forgot he'd done tonight. So he's happy and he's pissed off.
It's all right. I mean, we didn't really want to talk about Cleveland, Houston, did we?
No, I just love having somebody else to blame for my lack of oversight. Essentially, I love being able to put this straight on Ollie when actually the real situation is that I should have checked. It should have been my responsibility, but now I've got a scapegoat. Nobody cares. Let's do coaching corner.
Ollie didn't care.
It's good. You still get his money at the end of the month for doing a terrible job.
Youth of today. No commitment. That's the problem.
Literally.
Woke.
Attention to detail.
We've got a woke assistant. That's your problem.
Attention to detail. Nil.
Who could you ask?
Me.
Who do you know? You could ask what Sky games would be on this week. Who do you know?
I know
that's quite close that would tell you that information very quickly.
Many people.
Anyone in particular?
You
possibly?
Yeah, you
yeah.
would have done it. Let's do coaching corner, shall we? Before this descends into further madness, I decided that I would like to know the answer to. We often talk about who is calling the plays for any given team, and I didn't know why it made a difference. So, occasionally, you've got head coaches that call the plays. Occasionally, it's offensive coordinators. And then in some really weird circumstances, it's neither of those two, and it's somebody completely random like a defensive coordinator, which makes no sense to me whatsoever why a defensive coordinator would be calling attacking plays. So, I would like to know, A, have I got that right? And B, why does it matter?
A, no.
Good.
But only,
No,
only
he has
the
if
end
you
bit.
count
Only
Matt
the end
Patricia.
Yeah.
He's right.
No, he was an
England did
advisor
it.
to football. He wasn't any coordinator because they'd have had to pay. It's them when they were trying to cheat the rules again. Patriots, remember?
Yeah.
So a head coach, you've got a head coach, you've got an offensive coordinator generally, and a defensive coordinator. But if you've got an offensive-minded coach, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, to name a few, they will call the offensive plays. They have the relationship, and what you'll tend to have is a really good quarterbacks coach in there who will help nurture the quarterback, but the coach will call the plays in. We had a great example, to give you a great example, is Kevin O'Connell in Josh Dobbs' first game, if you remember, was calling the plays into the helmet and then describing the plays in the helmet as well. So it was him that was making those calls into the plays. So they don't have an offensive coordinator. And on the defensive side, a defensive coordinator would call the defensive plays and call the defensive football. A coach like Bill Belichick, for example, he does have his son as the defensive coordinator, Steve, but Bill Belichick calls the defensive plays in New England. And it doesn't really matter who the Ravens. John Harbaugh at the Ravens is one of the best head coaches in the game. Doesn't do either. So he'll do the game script and he'll say what they want to do, whether they want to go for it on third down, fourth down, etc. But he will then leave his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator to call the actual plays. So it's a case of what you're most comfortable with, what your quarterback is most comfortable with. We've seen an increase in the game at the moment. I think there's an increase in quarterbacks picking their own offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches because people they're comfortable with. Josh Allen, for example. You saw Aaron Rodgers hire Nathaniel Hackett. Really, not the Jets. Aaron Rodgers hired him to be his offensive coordinator because they've been successful before. So it depends on your situation and your quarterback and what you want to do, really. And as a head coach, where is your speciality and how much do you want to give up to somebody else in the organisation?
They'll often change who the play caller is when things are going badly because it gives them an excuse. For example, with Sean Desai, I think it was, lost his play calling responsibilities to Matt Patricia, funnily enough, ironically enough, with the Eagles this last game. People have come out and said it seemed to make a little bit of a difference, but you know, they are 31st in defence this year, which is incredible when you think about the talent they've got on that roster. It really is incredible. Like in overall scoring defence as well, which, yeah, I wouldn't have thought that if someone had told me that at the start of the season. So, yeah, it only makes a difference really when you're looking to give someone out, like freshen up the ideas or look for someone to blame.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're absolutely right. And you know, you only really hear about good coordinators come this time of year because they'll be next in line for the head coaching job. So you didn't really know who as a layman, you wouldn't have known who the offensive, defensive coordinators of the Eagles were last year, even though they were rampaging through the league. And now both those two went to be head coaches. Shane Steichen at the Colts, who's tipped now to be coach of the year, and is it Gannon, who's gone to the Cardinals, and he's building a team there. So you only hear about the good ones, really, when it comes around to this time of year and they start getting tipped for head coaching jobs. And it really is an organisation, when you're picking a head coach, do you want someone who's defensive-minded or offensive-minded? The trend in the league at the moment is you want the offensive mastermind, your Kyle Shanahan, your Sean McVay, your Matt LaFleur, and you don't go for a defensive guy like a Brandon Staley, because that goes badly. Ron Rivera, it goes badly. So the trend is that you want an offensive coach and you build a defence around it.
Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, offensive coach. He designed the running game in San Francisco and he's done a great job designing running plays. And he calls the plays, as we know, in Miami.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, gents. I always learn something coming away from Coaching Corner. We will do part 2 of the previews next. Can I veto this one? No, I can't.
Well, you can.
Giants at Eagles. I can't because we want to call the episode like "Live Eagles Live" or something, don't we? So it's the New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles, 9:30 game on the 25th of December. New York Giants hot off the back of a loss. The Philadelphia Eagles hot off the back of 3 losses in a row against the 49ers, Cowboys, and Seahawks. But at some stage, life needs to be breathed back into the Eagles, and I have a very funny feeling it's coming this weekend. Dave, would you like to go first on this one, my friend?
Yeah, if the Eagles are coming back, they're probably going to destroy you. It's going to be a horrible... Nah, don't say it. Don't even think that way. You've got a monster in charge now.
All ties to the Mafia are hearsay. We love you, Tommy.
Even though he does the... Mate, anyway, yeah, it's great. I love the whole thing. Like, DeVito's great. Like, if you were going to throw like, a shed load of cash at a quick QB, probably won't deserve it. You should have picked him, not Daniel Jones.
Did you see his agent in the crowd the other week? And he's gone like...
He looked like a guy out of Peaky Blinders.
He literally looked like he'd walked off the set of Goodfellas and into the stadium. Like, full hat and suit and coat. It was honestly, it couldn't have been more Italian.
I was listening to something the other day, and I can't remember his name. What's it called? The agent, but his LinkedIn bio, if you go on it, is videos of him sort of doing CrossFit, and he looks like Ben Stiller out of Dodgeball, with like fake tan and tips and things. He's already sacked him, Tommy DeVito. So Tommy DeVito was due to do a residency or an appearance at a New York pizza place, and they'd agreed a fee of $10,000, and then on the day after he'd won the game, the agent tried to put the price up to $20,000, so he didn't turn up. So Tommy DeVito went free of charge the next day, and then immediately fired his agent and just made. He's now not in charge of Tommy DeVito's marketing anymore. So that friendship of 20 years lasted a long time.
Like 10 minutes.
As soon as money gets involved.
Let's talk about the game, shall we? Tommy DeVito has taken more than 5 sacks in 4 out of his 5 starts. And again, we're talking about that Giants O-line. It just does not exist. There is no protection, and unfortunately, what that means that it becomes very difficult to get plays away. And against a team that are as good as the Eagles, both sides of the ball, that becomes tricky.
It does, and you sometimes see this with a young, exciting quarterback who comes in. No one's really seen him, and if he's a bit off the cuff, a bit like Josh Dobbs, Tommy DeVito, you can see a bit of a bounce, and you can, whilst the team's figuring it out, but after a couple of weeks, there's a reason he was not drafted or drafted so late, and it's very rare that after a couple of weeks they carry on maintaining that. Brock Purdy being the obvious example, but I think the Saints did a really good job on DeVito, and now the tape's out there of how to stop it. I'm pretty sure the Eagles front will feast. On Christmas Day.
There's so many stats here that we could give out that just point to the Eagles doing well. The Giants O-line in week 15, so last week, 6 points, 2 out of 16 on third down. If you cannot convert on third down, you can't win games of football, and unfortunately, I have a funny feeling it's going to go this way. Are we all picking the Eagles? I'm going to pick the Giants just because I feel like I should against.
Yeah, well,
against
it's Christmas.
Eagles.
It's time for miracles, isn't it?
Yeah, let's pray for one.
It's just it's such a good get right game for the Eagles, and they need it. They've had a really tough run. Cowboys twice, Niners, Chiefs, Bills. I mean, they've had a bloody murderer's row, and now they get Giants twice and the Cardinals. So, Merry Christmas, Philadelphia. See you in the playoffs.
Are you going with Dave? As if I need to ask.
Yeah. No, I've already said it 3 times, mate. Eagles.
I was just double checking, quadruple checking. Thanks, mate. Right, moving on to potentially the spiky.
3 times. How can we drag this out now?
We didn't have talk. You can, but I'm leaving in 3 minutes.
All right, good stuff. Ravens at San Francisco 49ers. Dave, get it out of the way, and then if you need to disappear, you can.
49ers.
Good.
Lazy.
Dan?
It's a team like Baltimore that can stop San Francisco. This is a tough one because it's Christmas Day. The Baltimore have got to travel from all the other side to the completely other side of the country to play a game on Christmas Day, which is a little bit. It's going to stretch them, I think, a little bit. I think. So I won't take too much of it. The Ravens will keep this close. I think they know how to scramble San Francisco. San Francisco are an excellent team at attacking a defense's weakness. The Ravens' defense hasn't got one. It's a well-rounded defense, and the last time that the Niners faced a well-rounded defense, the Browns, they struggled to move the ball, and I think the Ravens can stifle them just enough and cause enough frustration. And then it's a case of can Lamar, who's starting to play much better, buy himself enough time and escape the pass rush, which is immense from San Francisco. But can he escape the pass rush, and can he extend plays and make plays downfield? If he can do that, A, he'll win MVP, and 2, the Ravens can win this game. And I'm going to tip them because I want them to win, and I think there's a way. I think the Ravens are probably one of the only teams that can beat them because they're such a well-rounded team. Like a good version of the Eagles could beat them, I think a good version of the Ravens can beat them, and I think they will. And I've got a fact.
Quickly, because we've got to say goodbye to Dave.
Unprecedented record. The last 7 Monday Night Footballs have gone to the underdog. Oh. Never happened before, and the Ravens obviously are underdogs on this Monday Night Football. So Ravens to me. And Lamar's only lost 1 game out of 18 against NFC teams.
Dave's gone the Niners. You're going the Ravens. I'll have the deciding vote in a minute, but before we do that, should we say cheery bye to Dave? Have you got to go to your Christmas party now, or are you staying?
I'll give you 5 minutes, but don't talk 10 minutes over every game.
Sorry, Dad.
Jeepers creepers. Tanking last week. Do you want to know? Do you want to know
Kirk Cousins
the length of time your rant went on last week?
Too many games. Like, I'm sick of it, NFL. Now, come on.
16 minutes on tanking from you last week. Just as a Giants side, just you on your own, just kept going and going and going. And now we want to talk about the football. He's hurrying us up. Brock Purdy in 2023, 29 touchdowns, first in the NFL, 7 interceptions. He's going great guns. I really love that San Francisco 49ers pass rush. I think they're absolutely brilliant. As much as I love you and as much as I like the Ravens, for me, I'm picking the Niners here just because I think they're the best team, maybe right up there with the Bills at the moment in the NFL.
I think it's the best offense I've seen in 30 years.
Could be great.
I'll
Could
be
great.
honest.
Right.
I'd really wanted Dan to pick the Ravens to beat them. So if they do lose, I can rub it in. I'm really glad it happened that way. But, you should probably
Right, okay. Moving on to, is this our last game?
Yes.
Yes, great. So that is the Jets at the Browns.
Veto Browns.
It is a bit smelly. I'll go veto Browns. Dave?
Yeah. Veto Browns.
Veto Browns. Right, cool. Let's get the bets out of the way. Dave, you go first. What have you got for us?
I've got a couple of running backs to go in for 2 touchdowns, which are decent odds if you took them as singles. So you've got James Cook. We already mentioned him earlier. Probably the most effective running back out of the backfield at the moment. Actually catching the ball. They're using him well and intelligently, and also in goal line situations. So he's 4-1 to get 2 touchdowns. And then the ever perennial Derrick Henry up against the Seahawks run defense, which isn't particularly great. He's 7-4 combined. You get a rather nice. 6-1.
Dan?
Dead simple this week. Bengals to win, Packers to win, Broncos to win, Lions to win, 4.5 to 1.
Phew, good stuff. Derrick Henry had the very unfortunate moniker last week of he was like the first player ever to take 20 touches in a game and not make X amount of yards. Yeah, it was. He had a tough week, King Henry last week. Right, okay. I think that's just about it for time, which means we've got our utter punt of the week nominations. Dave, do you want to go first?
Jake Browning. Like, when you were a Vikings quarterback, you were someone who people hope for to do well. You got cut by Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer, not this current regime. So walking off the field and shouting, should have cut me. Yeah, you're right, mate, but they got kind of fired for those kind of decisions already. So, yeah. Remember who actually fired you, rather than just looking at a colour and going, oh, purple. You might say it when you see the Ravens.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jake Browning, I hate you.
Wind your neck in, Jake. He also came off the field, said, I think I need a beer, but I don't think that's a good decision because I'm probably just a bit dehydrated. Shut up. Dan?
Arthur Smith, head coach of the Falcons, I think surely for only another 3 games. They lost to the Panthers on Sunday, knocked themselves out the playoff race, and they were 4th and 2 on the Carolina 9-yard line and decided to go for it on 4th down. He didn't give it to Bijan Robinson, he's perennial world-class running back, or Kyle Pitts, for example, he's talented, ultra-talented tight end. He gave it to Desmond Ridder, who is shit, and they didn't get it. And then they backed to their deep, so that would have given them a 4-point lead, which meant the Panthers, who can't score touchdowns, would have had to score a touchdown. The Panthers then went on a 9-minute, 33-play drive and kicked a field goal and won the game won the game before it went to overtime.
Wow.
It cost himself a team in the playoffs, cost himself the playoffs, so cost themselves. They've lost to the worst team in football. Arthur Smith, if you survive this year, I'm giving up.
Wow.
I'm done.
That's a punt. I'm going with Kadarius Toney.
Again?
Yeah, if he keeps being played, we're going to continue to have this conversation. He is an athlete. There is no question about his athletic ability. Absolutely unbelievable. I think Rob Gronkowski came out this week and said he's an absolute monster. He can run routes. He's a brilliant athlete. But, and I quote Gronk, it's kind of like you just don't love the game of football if you keep making the mistakes that he's making. Really spotty hands and making really daft decisions. It's a total lack of accountability for Kadarius Toney. If you make an error, come off the field, assess your performance and fix the problem that you've clearly got. And there's been more than once. Lining up offside, bobbles turning into interceptions, poor catching. Eventually, Pat Mahomes is just going to lose faith in you completely and you'll never get another reception at the Chiefs again. Kadarius Toney, utter punt of the week.
It's so frustrating with him because he won them the Super Bowl.
Yep.
He's so good. He just can't catch the ball.
Absolutely right. Right, that's it. That's the end of Utter Punts for this week. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas. And if you don't listen to us again before New Year, Happy New Year too. We will be releasing a podcast at some stage between now and then. See you soon, Dan.
See you later.
See you later, Dave. Enjoy your party.
Bye. Have a good evening. All.
Cheerio.
Shit,
Have a good one.
Yuletide felicitations, everybody. We will see you next week.